Hi, volleyball fans, and welcome back to Volley Talk, the podcast created for volleyball lovers who want to dig deep into what is going on in NCAA and international volleyball. I'm your host, Sarah Pavin. I'm an Olympian, beach volleyball world champion, former Nebraska Cornhusker, and longtime pro, both indoor and on the beach.
And I'm Adam Schultz, former indoor player, international volleyball coach, and the show's resident stat guy.
We just finished up week 2 of the women's VNL, and as we expected, there were some serious movement happening, both up the ranks and down. It was a little mix-up week. So the crowds in Hong Kong, Istanbul, and Belgrade were amazing, particularly for the home teams or local teams.
I will tell you, the Hong Kong crowd loves a net serve. Every time a serve hit the top of the tape, there was an audible gasp across everybody in the crowd.
They loved net serves. They loved spin serves. They loved digs. They loved big attacks. They were animated.
They were into it.
China and Japan were both playing there. They loved Japan. Mm-hmm. They really did.
And the Turkish fans were off the hook.
Particularly for the Brazil match.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was cool to see across the board. There are several interesting storylines for us to follow this week, and we got a ton of comments and questions that we want to address. So let's get started. There is not a ton to talk about outside of the play of VNL this week, but there are a couple tidbits. So there weren't any new Love signings that were posted other than a coach signing. Sonia Tomasevic is going to be coaching Love Houston. So she played at Washington, was part of the team that kicked the living snot out of my team in the national championship match my sophomore year. So yes, I remember that. Then most recently, she was the head coach at Arizona State and was the assistant coach at Vakif Bank this past season. So she is going to be joining Love. Barbolini, obviously, is out. Unless he switched teams, but I doubt it. Somebody tell me. Did Barbolini switch teams or is he just gone?
One and done. He did that. Had some fun.
He's like, been there, done that. Let's go back to Italy.
Once we got to the super point, I was out. You lost me there.
Fair, though.
So a couple weeks ago, we talked about how there was a lack of feedback from the USA women's coaching staff to the players during matches, and we wondered if that was going to change. This week, I had a comment posted on YouTube after the USA...
tons of comments about that.
Fair.
But this one...
But this comment in particular was after the Poland match, and I fell out of my chair laughing, and I figured that I wouldn't let all of this hard work go to waste, and I would share it with our listeners. So this person said, I listened and recorded every timeout during the Poland match. Here is a list of what was said. First one, shrugs. Let's get after it. Second one, hey, at some point we've got to start moving on, right? Third one, we're just playing into this. I don't know. We're just digging a hole for ourselves. Next contact, reset, 0-0 volleyball right now. And last but not least, let's come back out and find a little rhythm here.
I'm pretty sure I also heard one. I think it might have actually been, maybe it was Serbia. No, it was the Poland match where he was like, they basically want to give this to us. So let's do it.
Now, we're having a little bit of fun here.
Yeah, before everybody like throws their arms up and so it's this we're having fun.
Now, I think we'll talk about this later on the episode, but I will say, to the team's credit, they moved back on defense. They played less of a college style. They passed better this week so they could run a bit of a faster offense. Better than the first week, right? And so there were some visible adjustments to the play. We'll get into it, but I'm just saying we're making light of this, but there were some changes from week 1.
But across the board, people had the same sentiment regarding the feedback, and this person actually went out of their way to record them, so we had to share. Those are our highlights for the week, though. The comments, the timeout recording made it to the highlights because we enjoyed it so much.
There were actually a lot of really interesting posts on YouTube this past week and on the Instagram. So thank you for everybody for engaging with us. There were some really good thoughts, comments, questions. It was a lot of fun to read through.
All right. Time for our VNL Week 2 recap. As I said, the women played this past week. Italy is now the only unbeaten team in the women's competition. This past week, they played Bulgaria, Thailand, Japan, and China. So they are sitting at 8-0 solo. Poland, Brazil, and Turkey all have 7 wins. So they are filling the 2 to 4 ranking. Again, I would say expected for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Top 4 right now. We have a set of like bubble teams, and we're going to dive into the bubble teams a little bit later, but currently the teams that are competing in the 7 to 10 spot, and remember the top 8 move on if Poland is among them. So those teams are Germany, USA, Czech Republic, and Dominican. And we have Serbia still sitting at 0 wins. And the question I just keep asking myself is like, at what point are you planning on using Tijana Boskovic? Like, what is happening? You guys are facing relegation in the, like, an inch away. It's getting very serious. And at what point are you planning on bringing this woman back? Is she injured? I'm wondering if she's injured. Like, why would you not use her, especially at home, when you are staring down the barrel at relegation?
I get if they're resting her or whatever, put her in for the 5th sets of matches so you can just win. Like, she's a cheat code. She should be playing.
They're struggling, you guys. But we will get into that a little bit later. And a very interesting stat that Adam found is
Kira van Rijk still leads the VNL with 15 aces, more than anybody else. And she didn't play this week, which I thought was pretty incredible. She's averaging over 3 aces a match, which is wild.
That's insane.
So good for her.
So in week 1, she played 4 matches. Everybody else a lot of players have played 8. I understand their switches, but she's still leading.
The crazy thing is I was watching the speed gun in that first week, and she's hitting it in pace or in line with a lot of the male spin servers. And that just kind of gives you a reference point for what she's doing in the female game. It's impressive.
So we've seen a bit of separation. Some teams are really starting to differentiate themselves here. The top half, the bottom chunk.
The relegation teams.
1 more week to go. So 4 matches per team left. The picture is becoming a little more clear. But I mean, the top 4 teams, I'm not really shocked.
No, they're pretty set, and they've all played well.
All right, we've got a few storylines this week that we kind of want to talk about. So the first one is the Turkey versus Brazil match.
So we had a lot of people ask us, what are our thoughts on Turkey? How are they doing? And I thought that this match in particular was really interesting. Now, take what I'm going to say with a grain of salt, because Turkey is 7-1. They have won a lot of matches, but for me, it's always interesting when top teams play each other. And Turkey and Brazil faced off, and I would say that they both had their best players in. So Gunesh didn't start, but neither did Gabi. Brazil is missing Rosa Maria, but we're looking at 2 teams with very good rosters, relatively complete, like similar lineup to what we'll see at World Championships, I would imagine.
And before you say, well, Thaisa and Carol aren't on the Brazil lineup, they're not on the wide roster for VNL, so they're not even in the conversation. Erdem also not on the wide roster, not in the conversation. We're talking about the people who are available.
So the thing that was interesting for me was there was a dichotomy on the court. Brazil was cool, calm, and collected pretty much the whole match and played consistently. I thought that Ana Cristina was very good in that match, but Brazil was consistent all the way across. Turkey was interesting for me. They had runs where they were unstoppable, but they are such an emotional team. And I think it's a good thing. You want to see that passion. They're playing at home. Their fans are into it. But it's a bit of a double-edged sword for me, because when things didn't go well, the team dips with the emotion. The execution drops with the emotion, whether that's defensively. And for me, the biggest thing was decision-making. When they had high emotion and they were feeling good, they were making unbelievable shots. When that disappeared and there was a little bit of frustration with one or two players, the decision-making to me was not on point. They made risky swings, they made bad decisions, and to me that was the difference between Turkey and Brazil, was the decision-making in those moments. So I would say, Brazil played at a 7 or an 8 out of 10 of their capabilities, but they played like that the whole match. And Turkey was, at some points they were playing at a 9 out of 10. At some points they would drop below, like play at a 6 out of 10. And I just think that as a team, they're going to need to harness that emotion and use the good, but figure out how to be technically sound and make good decisions when there's a little bit of frustration or things aren't going the way they want.
I feel like the emotional aspect is part of Turkey's identity.
Fair. But it comes with a downside.
It is a little inconsistent, and it's hard because, I would say that Zehra Güneş brings a lot of emotion and consistency to the court. She is somebody who is always pushing and is fiery and passionate. So bringing her in for a point here and there, that is kind of disrupted. So with her gone, the emotional engine, simply because she is the most present or the most noticeable with her emotion, becomes Karakurt. I wanna say that Güneş could balance her out a little bit, but when the super high highs and then the visible frustration is coming predominantly from one player, I think that is very obvious. Contrast that with Melissa Vargas, who had no emotion pretty much the whole match. I think maybe in a couple points, set 3 maybe, when it was really close and they were pushing to win that. But yeah,
it feels to me that Turkish team plays on the edge. It's high risk, high reward volleyball. If they're all going and they all feel good, they're unbelievable. But it looked in that match like there were just little things that could kind of pull them out of that rhythm, and they weren't good enough or they weren't connected enough to find their way out against a really good opponent who was just consistently doing the right thing. And it just seems, I look at that and I think, is this the winning formula for when you need it? Or are you relying on the emotion to be there at the right moments when you can execute? I think about which one is a more consistent way to win.
I wouldn't say that Brazil was unemotional though.
Brazilians are never unemotional. That's kind of, but
no,
it wasn't.
They were definitely fired up. They were celebrating, but it was consistent. Even when they were losing points, when they were winning, the eye contact was there. They were all on the same page, it looked like. I don't know. Again, it's Turkey has had success. This is their identity, and they've been successful playing like this. It's hard to
So the thing I think for me then,
I like the passion. I understand that it can't just disappear when things aren't going well. I get it.
I think for me, it's more the decision making. When your emotion isn't there and you don't have that cross court bang, how else are you going to get it? For me, the thing I noticed was when they weren't that emotionally engaged, they made decisions that weren't correct in the moment. And it affected their decision making, which is what I think hurts them from an execution and point standpoint. So you have to learn how, if I don't feel great, my decision making doesn't disappear with my emotion. That's what I saw watching that match. And again, I'll say that Turkey's just so good that it's not an issue against most teams. This is only an issue against teams that are equally as physical and skilled. Italy, Brazil, maybe Poland.
I mean, those three teams you talked about are generally pretty steady emotionally.
And that's kind of the...
But it's a give and take. Because that emotion propels them to victories that sometimes, if they didn't have it, they wouldn't maybe pull off. But at the same time, in bad moments, it can make them worse than they are. So it's just like, it's such a double-edged sword here. It like, that emotion and that passion and that fire has gotten them out of trouble and has like pushed them to higher limits. But there's the balancing act of that. I personally think that the difference in the match was Brazil was just in system more.
Fair.
Like, I think Brazil served them much more aggressively than they served Brazil. And Brazil picked up more balls on defense. Turkey could not stop Anna Cristina. She had one blip, at the end of set 2 or something, where she got blocked a few times. But other than that, she was virtually unstoppable. I think she scored like 27 points in 4 sets.
Yeah. To me, I think that's part of the decision making. Like, Kara Kurt would get frustrated and was nowhere to be found on defense, or their position would break down because it seemed like things weren't happening the way they should be. Like, that's the discipline in the decision making, that if you're not feeling great about, let's say, your offensive game or your emotion, those pieces need to stay.
I also think they didn't get Vargas going. I don't think they put Vargas in a position to be successful early enough. To me, it looked like she was getting under the ball a lot.
They set her off
and
the net. Yeah.
The balls were a little too far off the net, and like she wasn't adjusting her approach to stay behind the ball. She was getting underneath it. Once that sorted itself out, she was scoring great.
Yeah.
Kara Kurt, she was mixing in a lot of tips, which were effective. I also want to say her transition to the left side, she's gotten a lot better. Her passing is so much better now. Mm-hmm. That is a tough transition. So, wow, she is a black hole on defense. I think that's pretty fair to say. Yeah, I just feel like they didn't get enough players going at the same time. Now, was it because of what you're saying? I don't know.
Yeah, it was a noticeable stylistic difference from the other top teams, and I'm curious to see if they can harness it or if it comes back to bite them, because they're good enough if they were to just play on a level to compete, I think. Now, this definitely pushes them over the top when it's all going well, but I'm curious what the counter on that is. So it was interesting to watch that match.
I wanted to see them play Gunesh more, honestly.
Yeah. And she might be the personality or the emotional balance of that team.
Well, back, like, Erdem was I would say, the emotional foundation of that team, because she was much older. She was experienced. She kind of kept players under control with her presence. And now that she is gone, there's a younger who is going to take on that role?
Yeah, fair.
I guess. But on Brazil's side, like, they brought Gabi in every now and then as a right side. Bergman was doing great. Anna Cristina, as we said, virtually unstoppable. Lorena was touching everything at the net.
No, they look good.
Like, they look very polished.
Hey, we're going to take one of the best players in the world, and we're just going to throw her in to a position she doesn't play, and, here we go.
I mean,
what a luxury.
They look very smooth. They were looking really good.
Oh, yeah. So one of the other teams that we got a lot of questions about was Japan. And actually, Japan played in my favorite match of the week.
I think our favorite match of the week was the same match.
Yeah, the Italy-Japan game was a banger.
Wow.
It was so good. It was so much fun to watch.
Oh, my gosh. It was outstanding. Some of the rallies.
Oh, incredible.
This Fukudomi, who was playing libero for Japan in that game, some of the balls that she dug, I was like, is this a cartoon? Am I watching anime?
It was, her ability to cover, to extend rallies, to be in the right place and stab at balls. And Italy is unloading on her, and she is fearless. And it was It was unbelievable.
So they traded blowout sets in the middle.
Yeah.
But then we had 2 very close sets. And then the 5th was 19-17 Italy.
And I think Japan had a point for the match. So, I mean, let's talk about Japan as a team to start. Their ability to put service pressure on opponents is maybe second to none.
Well, they have to.
Yeah. So here are the things that I love about Japan. Their service pressure is unbelievable. Their ball control, for the most part, is very good. They run a really fast offense. I really like their pin hitters. Wada, really good. I mean,
she's only 23.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Her arm is so fast. She hits a pretty heavy ball. She moves around front row, back row. She finds holes in the block. I mean,
Wada, Yoshino, and Ishikawa for me are like, wow.
Yeah, so their outside core is very good. Ishikawa is maybe one of the best decision makers I've seen play volleyball. She seems to find the best decision in all situations, whether it's going for the hands, tipping off the block, hitting at a seam. Like, her vision and ability to execute what she sees is unparalleled.
Okay, so we actually had a question submitted about her this week.
Okay.
So let's address it now since you're talking about her already. So the question was, I've heard you guys comment on the importance of height for women's hitters. Basically, we're talking about how the hitters in love are much more physical than the PVF hitters. So this person asked, what makes Ishikawa such a dominant outside at only 5'9"? Is it something physical like her jump or her arm swing mechanics? Or is it something mental like her creativity or being able to read the game better? Or is it some magic that she and her brother Yuki share?
I mean, maybe all of the above.
I think she jumps exceptionally well.
Yep.
I think her arm swing is very fast. Her vision, as you were talking about, she sees openings. She takes openings and swings for the court. And by that, I mean, like, she's looking to score inside the sidelines when it's available. And when it's not available, she's very good at getting creative and using the block to her advantage and scoring outside the court.
Yeah, so I think there's 2 things there that I think are really important. The first one is she has the capability to score inside the court. So if you know a hitter's only ever looking for hands and can't blow up or beat a defense, it makes a shorter player easier to defend. So she can do that, and it holds the blockers honest. The other thing that
and it holds the defense honest because they have to dig around the block. They can't just like play out, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. The other thing that I think she does incredibly well is she always gets her feet to the ball so that she has all of her options. She very rarely looks like she's bending to get a set or moving to give herself options. So when you're kind of straight up and down and on the ball, you can go in a bunch of different ways so that when you see what's open, you're in a position to take it. And I think she does that really well.
Well, and doing that also maximizes the contact point of her attack, which she needs to maximize because of her size.
Yeah.
It's not that I think that hitters have to be huge. I think we inherently see bigger hitters have more success just because the height they contact the ball, the angles that are available to them. But when you have a hitter that can jump well like this and that has so many of these tools at their disposal, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, you make up for what you don't have, but you have to be very technically sound. And
yeah, I would say she's an exception to my quote unquote rule.
Now, the thing I've noticed about watching Japan over the last couple of weeks is that if teams are in system and can set their middle, that's when they get in trouble. And so if a team is really locked in or passing really well, there isn't a lot Japan can do when they run their middles in different ways, including with the pipe over top. They just don't have the size to be able to defend that effectively. And so that's kind of out of their control because they don't have players on the roster.
Well, if they have an
size.
Achilles heel, that's probably it.
And I think that's what you've seen happen to them in the matches that they've lost, is that they've been dominated in the middle.
I mean, I understand that the typical Asian style is to serve super aggressively, and that is why. Yeah. It's because for a very long time, especially in the past, they couldn't compete at the net with the players that were so big. Obviously, their game works, and they do have players who can compete at the net physically now, but they have to serve like that. They have to take those risks, because if teams are perfectly in system with competent middles who are very terminal and they run a great, like, it's done.
Yeah.
That's done.
So they're a lot of fun to watch. They keep a lot off the floor. They serve really well, but that's kind of what we've seen with the teams that have beat them.
Well, and Italy was very successful running the middle. Sarah Farr was almost unstoppable.
Yeah, she was all world in that match.
She was outstanding. And to be honest...
And just to be fair, she will do that to teams other than
Japan.
No,
she's so good. But Italy did a really great job of making her available.
Yeah.
I thought that the libero who played for Italy did a great job. I think Alice De Gradi played really well, dug a ton of balls, scored really well. Egonu was solid. The setter who can be started, the young setter who came in. Like, Italy was seamless. They got beaten real bad in set 2.
Yeah.
So that was a little shaky.
Passing trouble in that set.
There you go.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, they looked very good.
I mean, Italy is the team to beat right now. I think them and Brazil in the final, maybe.
Oh, do we have an early prediction?
Yeah, I really liked the way Brazil looked against Turkey.
So did I. And they didn't. I'm wondering how they're going to use... They have so many competent athletes. It's like Bergman has been doing a great job, and typically you would see Gabi play in front of her.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's not going to happen, but it's like, how do you utilize these pieces that are doing really well without disrupting your rhythm, without, like, Rosa Maria still is, like, there are so many options.
I actually really liked putting Gabi on the right side, because both Bergman...
They weren't setting her back row, though.
No.
I was wondering, I'm like, is this a conscious choice to not make her attack, or is it an attacking issue from that side? Because she is quite effective in the pipe, but hitting back row on the right side is different.
But they did move her in to pass a few times to free up the left side, so it gives you that too. I mean, I think that she's probably still resting from her. She played a lot of volleyball this year. Yeah, it's nice. Zé Roberto's got a few options on the lineup card there.
I honestly like that early prediction. Brazil is looking so good. Italy is looking so good. Honestly, Japan made the final of VNL last year. If they can create that pressure with their serve and keep teams off the net, like, don't count them out either. Like, it's cool.
Yeah, there's definitely 4 or 5 teams I think can win depending on who gets hot. But the consistency that Italy and Brazil have shown, for me, makes them a favorite.
We have one more week of women's VNL competition. So with 4 games left per team, the battle for the final 8 is on. The current standings, as we mentioned earlier in the episode, are Italy, Poland, Brazil, Turkey, Japan, China, Germany, USA. Those are the top 8 right now.
So let's look at this and break it down, because there's some interesting matches coming up. So China sits in the 6th spot with 5 wins. And then the following teams all have 4 wins. Germany, USA, Czech, Dominican. So there are 5 teams there for 3 spots. Now, there's a whole bunch of teams that have 3 wins underneath them. So
you're saying Italy, Poland, Brazil, Turkey, Japan are locks.
They're in. They're not. There's nothing that have. And you know what? China is most likely in as well. Their fate is in their own hands.
So who is China playing next week?
So this is the pool essentially to come out. So there's 5 teams there, and 4 of them are all in the same pool next week.
Oh, dang. Okay.
So you have China, Dominican, Canada, Germany, and USA all in the same pool. Now Thailand's also in that pool. So that is it's kind of a straight win for anybody who plays them.
Except Canada.
Well, we're going to get to that because that might be the relegation match.
Oh my gosh.
So China plays Dominican, Canada, Germany, USA. They're probably going to beat Dominican, Canada, and Germany, and they'll probably beat USA. Although if Avery Skinner comes, that's a different team, and so that's going to be a good match.
Well, Dominican won't make any changes. They can't. Canada, same thing. Germany, kind of same story. So the only team that can level up a little bit is USA.
And Germany's a little inconsistent. China can be a little inconsistent. I would give the edge to China, but that China-Germany match will also could be a good one.
I think it could be good.
Because China's young. Again, China has one more win up on those ones. I'm assuming they're going to get at least 2 more wins, probably 3 in that pool. So I think China's going to be in.
Okay.
So that leaves us with 2 spots between Germany, USA, Czech, and Dominican. Now, Czech is in a pool all on its own.
So none of their competition.
Of their competition. So they play Serbia, Turkey, Netherlands, Belgium. Now, Czech is new.
Czech is doing better than I expected.
There are 3 teams in there that they could legitimately beat. Because Netherlands...
They're not going to beat Turkey.
They're not going to beat Turkey.
No.
But Serbia is winless, and depending on whether Pokeroo shows up for them or not, we don't know.
If you're Canadian, you understand with the Pokeroo reference if you grew up in the 80s and 90s. If not, look it up.
That's potential. Netherlands stunk this week, so we'll see what happens, with that. And Belgium is kind of on their level. That's a match that I would expect to go to 5. And so Czech could win 3 of those matches, legitimately. I'm not sure that's likely. I think it's probably more realistic that they win 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But they could win 3. And then the rest is a shootout. Germany plays Canada, Thailand, China, Dominican. They could win 3 of those matches. They could win 4 of those matches, quite frankly.
Oh, dang.
Right? USA has Thailand, Dominican, Canada, China. They could win 3 of those matches.
Oh my
They could win 4 of those matches.
This is going to come down to points or set ratio or something.
100%. So that pool in and of itself is
that
going
one
to be
pool is
must
the decider.
Watch because all of those teams are playing each other. You want to watch teams pucker and play for those last spots. That is the pool that I'm going to be watching.
Who can handle that pressure, baby? That pool is nasty.
But it's
not. You know what I mean? Skill. If you're looking at the teams, you're like, oh, this pool is meh.
None of the top 5 teams are in it.
No, but it's nasty in the sense that all of these teams are in the same position. It's the last week of competition, and it's which ones of us are gonna make it?
Yeah. So that
I love situations like this, you guys.
It's super interesting how that worked out, and basically for all of these teams, your fate in making the playoffs is in your hands.
You have to bring that pool in particular has to bring everybody they can.
Yeah. But
making the final 8 is important to them.
Right. So I think that's really interesting, and it'll be curious to see how Czech does against some of these other teams.
Ho, ho, ho.
And I will say that France and Netherlands are close, but France has Japan and Brazil in their pool, so they're not going to win those. So they can at most get 2 wins, which is going to put them at 5. So it's...
Adam's crunched the numbers. This is Adam's bookie business.
I love this stuff. Okay, so
the battle for relegation?
Yeah, let's go down to the bottom. Okay, so currently we have Serbia has 0 wins. I'm not even sure how that's possible. Korea has 1 win, which was against Canada.
Well, a couple weeks ago, I was like, Korea's not going to win a match. Leave it to Canada to be like, you can win against us.
It's a tough look to be the team that gets beaten by the bagel.
Well, maybe Korea will win a match and then it'll happen to somebody else.
Yeah, we'll see. So Serbia is in last, then Korea, then Thailand, and then Canada. So Korea and Thailand both have 1 win. Canada has 2 wins. Okay? So in Serbia's pool is Czech, Italy, Belgium, Turkey. So they're not going to beat Italy, and they're not going to beat Turkey. Probably not even if Boscovic shows up.
Boscovic, I would say.
Because they're just not grooving. Now, they had some close matches
But
Like,
they always
you
find a
never
way to
know.
lose.
They
Like,
all-
even when the matches are close, they find a way to lose.
So, but you have to remember all these teams are in the same place with that, because Canada also
is finding ways
finds
to
a way.
lose.
So
Canada's great until they're just not.
yeah. So it'll be, I mean, I still don't see them. They're not going to be Italy. They're probably not going to be Turkey. So Serbia is going to come out with at most 2 wins. Okay.
Okay.
However, they already have 5 points.
So up to 7 points? Or, sorry.
No. If
2
they-
win. You think they're going to win in 3 or 4?
I think if they win in 3 or
So
4.
max 11 points.
So they could
let's
get
say.
to 11 points.
Okay.
And then if they push Turkey to 5 or whatever else, like, they're not in as bad a place as you might think.
Okay.
I mean, they're in a bad place, but like, it's not bleak.
Compared to the Serbia we're used to seeing, this is like opposite day.
Yeah.
We're in the twilight zone.
So Korea, I think, is probably not going to win. They have Poland, Japan, Bulgaria, and France. France is playing well. Maybe they beat Bulgaria, but I see them sticking at 1 point, and they're probably going to end up at the bottom. That's my prediction.
Okay.
Thailand plays Canada. So I don't think Canada's probably not going to beat Germany. They're probably not going to beat China. They're probably not going to beat the U.S. Okay, but they play Thailand, and Thailand probably not going to beat the U.S. or Germany or Dominican. So that match is going to come down to head-to-head, who wins. If Thailand wins, they're tied for points, and the tiebreak procedure is wins, losses, so they'll be tied, and then it comes down to points, and then it comes down to set ratios. So,
Well, Canada has way more points than them, don't they?
so as it stands, Canada has 6 points, and Thailand has 5 points, but 1 less win. Yeah, it's going to come down to that match.
So if that match goes 5, they'll be tied.
Yeah.
And Thailand wins.
Yeah. So we will see. I don't think Serbia is going to get relegated. I think it's going to be Korea and then either Thailand or Canada. And it's going to come down to that one match unless Canada can maybe beat Germany.
Or push a team to 5.
Or push a team to 5.
Well, Thailand might push a team to 5.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I think Korea is going to be relegated.
I think Korea is going to be relegated as well. I think that Canada is better than Thailand.
I thought Canada was better than Korea, and they managed to
Yeah.
throw that game away.
Totally fair. So that's what we're looking at in terms of possible relegations, qualifying for playoffs. And again, it's interesting, Thailand and Canada in the same pool. So that pool is to get in and also to be relegated. So all of those matches are going to matter.
Didn't this similar situation happen in Canada last year with Netherlands, where it was like, oh, if we beat you in this VNL match, we will go to the Olympics, and then they completely folded. So who do you think is going to squeak out from the bubble teams? You thought it was going to be
Who's going to make the playoffs?
between Germany, USA, Czech, and Dominican.
I think it's going to be China, Germany, and the U.S.
So you think Czech and Dominican aren't going to make it?
Yeah.
And then you think that the relegated team is going to be Korea? Okay. That's Adam's prediction. Let's see what happens.
So on that note, I actually have a question for you.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
I've watched several teams. So we talked about Serbia not having Boskovic. We look at Canada, who doesn't have 3 of their players, Van Rijk, Gray, and their setter. What do you think are realistic expectations? How do you think that factors into this when you look at it big picture? Because, Italy left 2 good left sides at home. Brazil's not playing, Gabi and Rosa Maria. Like, other teams are leaving or missing players as well.
Uh-huh.
How do you think that reflects on those programs, or what the expectations are? Like, how do you look at that situation?
I think when I see situations like that, it makes me think of the future of the program. Like programs like Brazil and Italy that are able to rotate players a little bit and still have success, like the program is going to be fine, and that can speak to their youth development, that can speak to, their junior national team programs, the strength of their leagues and the training that they're getting in the professional environment in their country. Like it could speak to any number of things, or the quality of coaching in their countries. But the big thing for me is just like it shows the health or the potential health of their national team program in years to come. Like if you're losing a couple starters and your team literally is in the tank, your future's not looking great. But if you are able to swap players and do that and still find ways to win, like that bodes really well for your future. So that's a perfect segue into our final storyline of the day, which are who made the biggest improvements and who were the biggest downfalls.
I love this section.
Do you want to start with the biggest improvements?
Sure. Probably for me, I would say France was the first one.
People might be shocked to hear mine, but USA. And I'm going to put Czech. I also had France, but my additions to yours would be USA and Czech.
I think that's fair. I think we can give credit where credit is due. I thought the French captain played really well this week.
French Cazot.
Yeah.
And their right side.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Jeline, their libero, is also solid. Yeah, I thought both France and the Czech Republic pulled off wins that I did not think they were going to.
Yeah, they were gritty. They grinded. They came together as a team. Their main players stepped up and scored points when they needed to. I thought overall, I would agree with you. Both teams won matches that they probably, quote unquote, shouldn't have, but it was good team effort and execution down the stretch.
USA, I know I've been like ragging on them, but they looked a lot better this week.
Yeah, and I think specifically having Dana Recchi there.
Dana Recchi made a big difference.
And
they had Maddie Skinner on the right side.
Yeah, who also played very well.
She did very well. She did very well on the right side.
So there's two things going back to Dana Recchi, and I noticed the defense was different. So my question to you, or my thought was, does Dana allow them, because she blocked phenomenally well. Like she is a presence and a force at the net for sure. Does having her automatically push the defenders back, because I noticed that they were
deeper.
They were deeper this week, or did the coaching staff make an adjustment?
You mean, did they listen to our podcast and take our advice? Obviously. 100%. I don't know. I hope that the coaching staff watched video and noticed it and made an adjustment.
Yeah, fair.
Who knows? I would love if that was the case. But Recchi, like with her size, they also could have been like, oh, she gets so many more touches. Like, let's back it up. But Amber Ajeed was blocking really well too. Like,
fair.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but their defense was different.
Yeah, it was much more effective. People were in good places. They were able to extend way more rallies than they were the first time or the first week. And Dana actually, she attacked well on the slide. So she gave them an option there. And again, they didn't play any banger teams this week. Like all of them were
Poland.
Fair Poland. So we'll see what happens there. But they took care of what was in front of them, and they came up with a good record. And I thought that they played better. I think there's still question marks on the left side for them, but they solidified the middle, the right side.
What did you think of Butler?
I thought she was fine.
Would you have played her over Ajeed?
No.
Really? You would have played Ajeed?
I like Ajeed.
I think Ajeed's been doing pretty well.
But I don't think that it's not a huge...
Yeah, it wasn't a huge difference.
Yeah, so I think they're almost interchangeable. For me, offensively, I think Ajeed is a little better blocking-wise, a little more stable. I thought Lexi Rodriguez set better than Hens. I think we can both agree on that. I think she passed fine. What you were mentioning about her defense.
Her defense, I just think she's not accustomed or used to the range of these athletes. In college, things are very straightforward. Players hit what they hit. A lot of them hit in line with their body. But you could see her being in a defensive position that is very college and would probably get her digs in college, and then looked surprised when the hitter used the wrist and wrapped it around the inside of the block and went a little deeper, or was able to hit a sharper angle. So I just think that she hasn't seen this type of physicality and attacking range before, but I agree that her setting was so much better than Hens's.
Yeah, and I think that they passed well as a team this week. And again, you're not playing Italy and Brazil, so take it with a grain of salt. But they were in system, and their offense was a little bit faster to the pin. So I think all of that helped. I
mean, I think they dropped the ball though on bringing If you're going to use Madison Skinner as a right side, don't bring 3 right sides. Like, you dropped the ball. You could have brought another left side.
Yeah.
Because Ronnie Jones-Perry was a massive liability. Just got aced, got blocked when it mattered, just completely fell apart at the end of sets. She didn't score well, but that was your only left side option on the bench.
Yeah. If I'm picking my left sides for next week, it's Lanier, Skinner, Adams, Franklin. And
Eggleston's been she scored pretty well this week, but
I don't think you're going to need her. You're going to need passing, right? Maddie Skinner is scoring points. I think you bring Lednicki or Babcock. I don't think it matters because Skinner's going to play. You have the middles are fine with Retke there, but you're going to need to pass well.
Okay, what about the biggest downfalls of the week?
I mean, I have 2 teams for me. I thought Netherlands they had opportunities. They were not as good as the first week. I wasn't impressed watching them. They looked discombobulated as a team. They were not fun to watch. Serbia is a dumpster fire right now. I don't know what's happening with them. Like, they're in matches and then they can't win.
Can't close.
And actually Canada, this comes down to the expectations, right? You're missing your 3 best players, but you're in matches against these other teams. Like, I mean, no offense, but like, you should be able to beat Korea.
Yeah.
Right? And you're losing matches. Like, you lost to Korea 13 or 15-13 in the 5th. You lost to Belgium 18-16. Like, you're there, but you've got to close. Like, that's to me about a mentality. That's disappointing. Yeah. I mean,
all of the scores against Brazil, 2 of the 3 were within 2 points. The last set against Turkey, 26-24. Like,
there's just an inconsistency there that's hard to watch because they're either getting smacked around or they're making bad errors at the end of sets.
Those 3 teams were the same teams on my list too. I had Canada, Netherlands, Serbia. I agree with you. Like, if you're losing those matches, if you're losing that many matches by 2 points, it's a mentality. It is a mental issue. It's being worried about making mistakes down the stretch, potentially playing safe, potentially, I saw a girl serve a ball under the net at 23-all, like, being terrified, not like mentally prepared, scared, like, you name it. But it's clearly not a physical thing. It's mental.
Yeah.
And 3 of your players who have helped the team develop and who have like experienced success aren't there. Like, winning is a skill.
And this is actually maybe a blessing in disguise for them, because if this didn't happen, and let's say you're going and you're playing at Worlds, everybody knows Alexa Gray or Kira Van Rijk are going to get the ball in key moments. If you are now forcing some of these athletes to be able to score, maybe you have more options down the stretch. Now, you better hope you don't get relegated, right? But
yeah,
I don't know. Thokboom, I think, has been consistently pretty good.
She's been the biggest surprise to me in a positive way. I've enjoyed watching her.
And then I think Guzin has also been decent.
She's like 19. This is her first. I mean, your 19-year-old shouldn't be the one holding it down.
Right.
Okay.
So I think that she has some potential. Now, again, you come out, nobody has video on you. You play free. There's a whole learning curve for her there, but in the small sample size where she's been on the court, I've liked her attitude. I've liked how she swung and been fearless. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I think overall it was a disappointing week for Canada. Lastly, about Canada, just because we're Canadian, what do you think the expectation should be when you lose O'Reilly, Van Rijk, and Gray is not there? What is reasonable? What do you expect from this roster? What's fair?
Well, you've still got 2 starting middles from your last few years. You've got a starting left side and your starting libero. So you've got 4 of your 7 starters from the last 7 years there. Granted, those 3 players missing, I think they represent at least half the team, probably more. I would expect you need to win the matches that you should. I don't ever think that anybody should win a match. I don't think that is fair to teams, but teams that are within your wheelhouse, I think the expectation needs to be that you take care of it. So they needed to take care of Korea this week. They needed to take care of Belgium this week. Like, those are not out of the realm of possibility to win. Like, you can't be satisfied getting close against those teams. You know what I mean? I will say the most disappointing part to me with Canada is their complete lack of on-court leadership and emotion or fire. I know you were talking about Turkey's emotion earlier in the episode.
They're on the other
they
spectrum.
take it to the extreme. Canada, they're not fun to watch right now. They're a bunch of flatliners. Some of them look like they would rather be anywhere else. They look absolutely miserable. Like, if you don't want to be there, go home.
I hear what you're saying, and as athletes, you know, you want to play within your personality. Not everybody's rah-rah, and
No,
that's okay.
I am not a rah-rah player either, but like when you're playing a Korea and you're in the 5th set, like, do you want this? Do you want this?
You can't be a negative drain on the team's energy, and I think some of the players are like that.
Yeah, again, there are some players who are like Kurt, who are like in your face. I'm going to scream at you. I'm going to stare across the net. I'm going to cheer to the crowd every time I score. There are players who are very subdued, like a Paula Eganu, who is just like all business, but like she gets her job done. But you can't, like you said, take away from the team's energy. If it's not in your personality to be rah-rah, don't do that. But be a neutral for your team. Don't suck the energy away. And that's what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
Any way you slice it. I don't even know if that's a saying, but it sounded good in my head. Any way you slice it, week 3 is going to be interesting.
I'm watching one pool.
Everybody tune into that one pool, okay? Do or die. Who's going to make the final 8? But these were our kind of favorite storylines of the week. We wanted to touch on Turkey. We wanted to touch on Japan. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see how this all plays out.
All right, let's hit the listener questions, my favorite part of every episode.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Question 1 is about Madison Skinner. This listener said, it seems like she hasn't really found her true home yet position-wise. How do you think this might impact her long-term success and her likelihood of making the Olympic roster? Is moving her around doing her a disservice, or is she not standing out enough at either position for coaches to feel confident developing her there?
You know, if you're getting your best case scenario and the Skinner sisters can pass well, having both of them on the left side, I think is your gold standard for that team. I think that gives you an incredible duo on the left who is dynamic. They can hit out of the front row, out of the back row. They're very physical. You know, I think that's your best case scenario.
If they can pass.
But I don't think that Madison's passing is there, and I'm not sure it's going to get there.
Well, and I, quite frankly, seeing her, I think she's attacking better on the right side right now.
So that's the flip side, right? I think as a coach, if you're looking at this from a 4,000 or a 40,000 foot view, like that's where
higher
you
than a
want it.
plane, everybody. We're going super high.
That's where you want it to be, but I'm not sure that that's realistic. I think she played very well from the right side. I think that her physicality gives her lots of options on the right side. She comes out of the back. I think she hits better out of the back row than she does out of the front row.
100%, I agree.
So there's obviously room for her to grow. I think when she plays teams who aren't as physical as her ability to tip the ball fast to the ground over top of the block is really good. She's going to need to learn to score out of system against well-formed blocks. That's kind of the area where I think she's going to need some work hitting on the right side.
Do you think coaches are doing her a disservice by moving her around, or do you think it's a her issue in that she hasn't stood out enough or proven herself
if she could
elite
pass,
enough at either position?
If she could pass, she would play on the left side, period. But USA doesn't have a right side right now. She's competing against Lednicki and Babcock, and I think
both
she's
of whom
better.
Can't even play Worlds,
right?
Because they're in college.
I think she's better than both of them. So I think Madison has found her home on the right side for at least the next year, and they are always going to have her work on passing to try and force her into that. Would be my guess.
Okay, question 2. This person said, I am watching the France-USA game right now, and there is not a lot of defense being played. Is this normal? internationally, or is the USA just not in the right position?
Yeah, I think that's the case. I don't think they've started game planning well. I don't think that they're reading situations particularly well. Like, let's be honest. Last week they were playing a college-style defense
Against Italy and Brazil.
Yeah, and so they've made a great step to moving everybody back and being a little more disciplined, because for the most part they were on a perimeter defense, which I thought was good this past week. But they're not at a point where as a team they're reading situations, they're adjusting defensive positions. I don't think they're talking about percentage breakdowns of sets and different rotations and who's taking what responsibilities, and if the ball's inside, make this adjustment. Like, they've moved their base position back and they're kind of playing
Big
defense
step.
from there. They're not that tight or close or
Well, none of these
operating.
players were good defensive players in college even.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Eggleston, Skinner, Franklin, like none of them were like standouts defensively at the college level. So now that they're all on the court at the same time, I'm like, oof,
Yeah,
watch out.
there's a lot of work to be done there.
But
And
it is not an international trend. Like if you want to see elite defense, watch Japan, watch Italy, Brazil
China.
picks up a lot. Like watch those teams and you will see that it's a USA thing and not a trend.
yeah, they're just not operating on that level yet.
Question 3. You mentioned how the Japan men's style of play was very different. Can you expand more on that, and what different styles of play are among the national teams? What are styles of play that don't mesh well or make it difficult for better teams playing worse teams?
So the goal of any team is to maximize your strengths, right? So, we hinted on it talking about the Japanese women, right? They're not as big as everybody else. So how do you maximize that? You serve well. You make sure you don't
Which
have
is
a ton
similar
of
to the
options.
Japanese men.
The Japanese men and women play a similar style. You have
Run combo plays to distract the block.
Yeah, lots of options, really fast. And again, you got to maximize what you have. So that's your kind of coach's job, is to figure out what personnel you have and what style works well. You might have really big players that can't hit fast balls because it takes away the angles that they can hit. So you slow it down so that you can use kind of what they're innately good at. Now, that's not to say you don't work on things, but different players have different things that are successful for them, different strengths. Some teams serve really well, some teams block really well, so you don't have to serve as hard. You keep the ball in play. It's all about kind of maximizing the players that you have.
Yeah. So typically you see smaller teams, they try to hit the crap out of the serve to keep teams off the net. They run their offense very, very fast, use distraction tactics to try to create openings and holes for their hitters to try to help them score. Bigger teams, you will also see them create a ton of service pressure because of their sheer size. They'll, as Adam was saying, the offense is maybe a little bit slower. They'll use, triple blocks more because their defensive skills aren't as strong. Like there's a lot of different ways that you can see teams using those strengths. For big, slow teams, playing a team like Japan is not ideal.
Yeah, you find the blockers often late. They're not pressing fast enough, so the hitters who are really good at getting the hands are finding you out of position. There's holes in the block. It's really hard to play teams that are super fast with quick arms if they're in system.
On the women's side, a lot of the times you'll see really big physical teams maybe not be as strong from the service line because they are relying on their size at the net, but that doesn't work against a team that's really fast either, because then your block gets taken out of it due to the speed. So it's a very interesting cat and mouse game, like a chess game of like, let's look at what we bring to the table and what we want to maximize. What does this team want to maximize, and what can we do to try to counteract that? And yeah, sometimes your style of play, even if you're a really great team, just does not go together with your opponents. And even on paper, if you are better, but you just like their strengths are able to be maximized more that day, like you will lose.
Question 4, and this is an interesting one. Is it on Karch that the U.S. women's program has next to no athletes ready to step into the shoes of veterans leaving? How could this have happened? Shouldn't it be a constant rotation of players ready to step in to avoid having the level of play just plummet like it has in the VNL for 2025? Do other countries have this same problem? Is this just a unique circumstance with a specific group of veterans?
I don't think that it's on Karch that the women's program is where it is. I honestly think it's on club coaches and college coaches and decisions that athletes make professionally. The way that the club and college game is structured, you don't have to be a full, well-rounded athlete. You don't have to be good at every skill to be able to be an All-American, because there's so many substitutions. Your weaknesses can be hidden so easily. Internationally, you are exposed because there are barely any substitutions. You need to be a full, well-rounded player. And I think it's just the American youth development system and college system that are creating those issues. Yeah, that's my initial thought. You're like, I disagree.
I took this in a completely different manner.
Oh.
Looking specifically at VNL, you have a whole bunch of veterans who could be playing now and have chosen not to. There are a whole bunch of people from the last roster who aren't going to retire and who are going to come back when it's convenient for them. Jordan Thompson could be playing. Annie Drews could be playing. You could have Kelsey Cook, any number of setters. Like, they have decided they don't want to play for whatever reason. And that's maybe they want to break, maybe they're going to retire. There's any number of reasons.
Okay, and if you're taking it in that direction, I mean, a lot of the players that are on the VNL roster were on B team rosters and stuff in the past. I don't know how their training works, like if the A team just trains with the A team, B with B, whatever. But if you want all of your athletes to develop, your B team and A team need to mix to get that kind of experience. I don't know.
Yeah, so I don't, like, they have enough athletes. If they really wanted to, if this VNL was important to them, they could have brought in other athletes and been just fine. They have capable players and I'm assuming a bunch of them are going to be at Worlds or play next year. So whether that was a program decision, whether that was an athlete decision, I'm not sure. The other thing you have to remember about this VNL is that the U.S. is an automatic berth into the Olympics. So they have the luxury of this VNL means, quite frankly, absolutely nothing
unless
to
they
them.
got relegated.
Unless they got relegated. But they're getting a chance to evaluate young players in pressure moments. So again, it's a mix of different things, but it's not on Karch.
Last question of the day. I'm new to VNL. I understand now that teams rotate their rosters for the preliminary rounds. But why? Fair. So 2-part question. Do we really expect a player to not be able to play the entire tournament? And 2, why wouldn't teams have a strategy to go all out with their strongest teams against the weaker opponents in week 1 to maximize their points? Then they could rest those players in the middle weeks. As long as they get into the best 8, that's all that matters.
Yeah, so there's lots of nuance here. So one is you have to remember that it's not about lasting for the tournament. It's the fact that all of these athletes are playing professional seasons that go all year long and then showing up and playing on their national teams. So you do need a break if you're nursing injuries from your pro season. Like there is some load management that happens here.
They fully could play the whole VNL. That's not it. I don't think that's it at all.
Totally. So that's number one. Number 2 is if we're looking at tournaments in order of importance, VNL is at the bottom, right? So Olympics, World Championships, which are later this year, VNL is something that you play.
VNL's third, and then I would say continental stuff is last.
Exactly. So these VNL is the area, especially in the first couple weeks, where you get a chance to play your younger players and get them some experience. And like we talked about in the last question, build up your youth so that they have some opportunities to understand what your culture is, what your systems are, what international looks like, specifically for those who aren't playing in really good pro leagues. So there's a balance from an overall national team experience that you're constantly thinking about.
Between winning and development.
Exactly. And again, it's like you said, we got to make the playoffs, and then you load up your roster. So, how can I do that? How can I get experience in all of that?
But if you're a deep team and you like we mentioned today, Italy, Brazil, whatever, you want playing against the weaker teams. You don't want to play your best players necessarily against the weaker teams. Because if you're deep enough, your second string players are probably going good enough to beat the weaker teams. You kind of want to save your top players to compete against the top teams, because that is where you're going to see that differentiation. So is it any shock that Italy took their top roster to the tournament, to the week where they had to play Brazil and USA? No. Because historically, Brazil and USA are two of the very top teams. And so they're like, we're going to bring our best roster to play against the best teams, not knowing that USA was going to bring who they brought. So it's definitely looking at who's in front of you, historical data, being like, do we need our top line to play this team? Can we get away with developing our younger players and still potentially win against these weaker teams? It's interesting.
Well, I hope that answered all the questions. These were great ones.
Great ones this week, everybody.
We always enjoy kind of looking through these and answering. But looking ahead to next week, we're in week 2 of the men's VNL. It's tight. Any team can qualify, could be relegated at this point. I think all the teams have wins. So I think this week is going to see some separation. We're going to see the kind of groupings settle in a little bit, I think. So I'm looking forward to what's happening. The matches are going to be in Belgrade, Burgas, and Chicago. So we should see some very good matches.
There are so many good ones. It was really hard for me to pick just 3, but here we go.
So here are the ones that we've highlighted that we think are going to be good this week. Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, we have Italy versus Poland. Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, Canada versus USA. That will be interesting. And then Sunday at 5 o'clock Eastern, yikes.
AM. Watch the replay.
Slovenia and Japan. So we got some highly ranked teams. We got a continent rivalry. And again, Japan and Slovenia should be a good one as well. It's going to be a crafty match, I think. So yeah, those would be the ones that I'm watching for sure this week.
That concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaking in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If you have a topic that you want us to discuss, be sure to let us know by reaching out to us on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week.